So, it's been a long day, maybe a rough day at work, maybe you had a fight with your spouse, exhausted taking care of your kids, you finally put them down for bed, you have all these problems floating around in your mind, things with money, things with family, relationships, work, but without even thinking, you just reach for your phone, open up some social media, Reddit, Instagram, YouTube, and you just start scrolling. Your mind shuts off, and for a moment, things just don't matter. You don't think about your problems. Things are feeling better in the moment, actually. You just kind of escape. But when you come out of that, maybe it's 30 minutes later, maybe it's a few hours, 2 a.m., and you just have that sinking feeling of guilt, shame. You just feel like crap. I've been there so many times, so many nights, and in this video I want to share the way of looking at this that really helped me to make a change. And it really started with seeing how this habit was affecting the different problems in my life, how they were connected. And so before, I thought, everything's just crumbling, everything's falling apart, it doesn't matter, right? That's kind of my subconscious thought. Like when the night came, it's like, just get on my phone, like who cares? Things are just screwed right now. But as I took a step back, I took a look, I'm going to share a few examples of how scrolling, how I unwinded at night, how that was actually affecting these problems. And what I realized is how it was making them worse. So first, how it was affecting my health. So scrolling would first make my sleep worse, just because looking at a screen just makes our sleep less deep, low quality right before bed if we're doing that. But also if I'm just, because of the sheer amount of time I'm delaying my bedtime, getting less sleep, which is already bad because I have kids who are waking up in the night that I'm taking care of. So that's number one. And then because I have less sleep, I'm not as likely to exercise, I have low energy. But of course, things are terrible, and so I want to eat food to cope, so I want to eat the same as I would if I had exercise, so I'm overeating, which makes me feel even worse. And these three main areas, these are the biggest areas of health. These just make me feel like garbage, I'm gaining weight. That brings me to the second example of how scrolling is kind of making my problems worse in relationships in my family. Because all these areas of health, especially lack of sleep, is making me less emotionally stable. It's draining my energy, so I can't be there as much for my family, especially my wife. Maybe I don't want to have those hard conversations when I've gotten less sleep, when I'm just feeling crappy about myself. And so not having those conversations with her is just going to make things worse. Things are going to pile up. We're going to end up having an argument. And this kind of leads to my third example of how scrolling and just how I spent my time at night was making things worse with finances, because that's such a big part of life. And if we're not having those hard conversations, we're not on the same page about finances. We're not knowing where our money's going, which is just going to raise our stress and just the overall chaos in our lives. We're not feel less purposeful because we're not working towards a common goal. So you can see how such a seemingly small habit, like scrolling, going on screens at night, can have such a big impact on our life and make all these other problems worse. And that's what it was for me. And so the first step was actually recognizing this like thought pattern, this maladaptive, this just false thought pattern I was having. I was thinking, my habits don't matter. Like, this isn't my problems, my habits, they're not the main problem in my life and in my family right now, right? I have financial problems, family problems, health problems, but it's not the scrolling, right? And it's so easy to think that because you get to the end of the day, you're overwhelmed with all these problems, you just want to relax, and you don't even think, and you just go to what's easiest, and that's screens. Just makes us forget. It's so easy to, when we have the willpower, to think, okay, I need to work on this problem and fix this. Whereas what I realized for myself was the real problem was how I was unwinding at night with these screens, how that was affecting everything else in my life. And I realized the only way I'm going to fix all these other problems is by fixing myself, and specifically fixing my habits at night. I think of that time as a very key time. You could think of your habits as at night as sort of keystone habits. They hold all the habits of life together because, as I mentioned before, if you get the night right, you're going to feel so much better tomorrow. You're going to be more capable of taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, taking care of all the other problems. And so that's the best place to start. So when we are overwhelmed at night, it's easy to turn to the phone, to these apps, social media, be like, great, everything's just crumbling. But if we can realize it doesn't need to be overwhelming, let's just start with health. Let's start with sleep. How can we get that right? Then things will start to fall into place. And I'm not saying to just by sheer will just stop scrolling, just go to bed. I mean, that's great if just kind of seeing things clearly, if that helps you to do that. I'm talking about creating systems around unwinding properly, truly relaxing at night so that you can get a good night's rest and be there for your family the next day. Now, these systems I've talked about a little bit in other videos. There's a lot of ways we can build these so that we're not just relying on our willpower in that moment to not scroll or whatever you're using to cope. And I'll talk about those more in future videos. But this is I think the best place to start is by just recognizing and looking at how this habit affects the other areas and starting to think about, okay, how can we change this one habit? And if you're wanting to talk more about how to do that, I would love to chat with you and we can figure out what's going on in your specific situation, because everyone's situation is different. These systems are going to look different for different families, when you have different stressors, emotions you're feeling at night. So you can click the link in the description if you want to set up a time to chat. But otherwise, please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.